Exposed. The incredible secret of my $1 million inheritance revealed on my child's birthday. Every day at Rosie's Diner buzzed with the steady hum of life, but today was different. Sarah's heart raced as she wiped a table, the letter still burning a hole in her pocket. Just days away from Lucy's first birthday, this revelation felt like a bitter pill stuck in her throat. A $1 million inheritance, tying her to a father she barely knew? A man whose wealth was shrouded in secrets. How could this be real? She poured coffee for a regular, her hands trembling slightly. "You okay, Sarah?" the man asked, his brows knitted with concern. She forced a smile, masking a storm of emotions brewing inside. How could she dream of a better life for Lucy when her past was a murky swamp of moral dilemmas? The memory of her mother's lessons flickered in her mind. Hard work, integrity, the values she held dear. But could she turn her back on a life preserver flung at her amidst all the chaos? The thought of the money twisted her stomach. What price had it come with? Greed? Betrayal? Would accepting it chain her to a legacy she despised? Beneath her bright smile, doubts choked her. Would this money fix everything? She wondered. In the diner, laughter echoed around her as families shared pies and memories. Why couldn't she feel the joy too? Every laugh felt like a nail in her pride. She was exposed, standing on the precipice of a decision that would change everything. But at what cost? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the aroma of coffee filled the air, Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. Her father's face flickered in her thoughts. Successful, powerful, yet mysteriously distant. What sacrifices had he made? Was he even capable of love, or was it all about the bottom line? The weight of this inheritance felt suffocating. With every plate she served, the chatter in the diner surrounded her like an unrelenting tide. Could her life be redefined by a man she barely remembered? The idea of wealth was intoxicating, yet it came with a past she despised. A bitter fruit. How could she welcome riches without selling her soul, her values? Suddenly, Lucy cooed from a corner booth, her innocent smile a sharp contrast to Sarah's turmoil. She waddled over with a crumpled piece of paper that flapped in her tiny hand. The spindly scrawl was her grandmother's, words of wisdom that had once comforted Sarah in dark times. As she unfolded the paper, a flood of emotions washed over her, the internal conflict igniting further. It was a stark reminder that love was far richer than wealth. Sarah's gaze shot to the envelope hidden in her apron, the choice looming larger than ever. A part of her yearned for escape, another gripped tightly to her guiding principles. Lucy beamed up at her, eyes glistening with unconditional adoration, unaware of the weight of her mother's turmoil. As the diner buzzed on, time felt suspended. This moment was excruciating, and now, with the paper clutched tightly in her palm, her heart raced at the crossroads before her. Wealth or love? Which path would she choose? The day stretched ahead like a formless void, a canvas of endless decisions to make, and Sarah felt the weight of her choice pressing down. The mingled scents of brewed coffee and freshly baked pies filled the diner, yet they seemed to disconnect from her senses. She shifted her gaze to Lucy, whose giggles rang like chimes in a gentle breeze, a melodious reminder of the innocence she sought to protect. The letter's edge dug into her skin as she gripped it tighter, resentment rising. She didn't need her father's money. She needed his absence explained. Had she been wrong to lose hope that he'd ever reach out? The thought stung. He might have lived a life full of riches, yet she had been raised on the wealth of grit and perseverance. Those lessons filled her with a sense of identity, solid but fragile. Her thoughts spiraled back to her mother's unwavering belief in honesty and hard work. Clinging to those values felt like a shield against the rough edges of her new reality. What if she took this step toward the million, she couldn't return? What if accepting this legacy meant unraveling the very fabric of her upbringing? Movement in the diner drew her attention back to the clattering plates and cheerful shouts of customers. Each joyful shout seemed to mock her quiet desperation. Suddenly, the bell above the diner door chimed, marking the entrance of a familiar umbrella of chaos, her childhood friend, Mike. "Hey, stranger," he called, his energy a tidal wave. He scanned the diner before making his way to Sarah, his grin infectious. "Not so much a stranger, just busy," she replied, forcing a smile as she wiped the counter, focused on the wood grain rather than his probing gaze. "Sure looks it. You've been lost in your thoughts. Everything all right?" His voice carried genuine concern that brought a flicker of warmth to her chest. "I'm just figuring some things out," she said, carefully choosing her words. Mike leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his expression inviting her to elaborate. "You ever think about going back to school? You could do more than this, Sarah. You're too smart to be stuck in this place." Her heart raced at the thought. Dreams of studying, of entrepreneurship, had lingered on her mind like dust motes. Plans that had once flourished had wilted under the harsh glare of reality. Could she still be that person? "I know I could, but—" She hesitated, the enormity of it suffocating her resolve. "But you need a way out. Is that why you look so conflicted?" he pressed. His words pierced through the fog. The inheritance loomed over her not as a blessing, but a burden. Was she really sacrificing her integrity for a quick escape? Or was this the moment to redefine her identity? She could harness untold potential, not just for herself, but for Lucy. The money could pave a road to new opportunities. "Mike, I don't want to disregard everything I've learned," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But maybe this could change things." His brow raised with intrigue, pushing her to confront herself. "Then do it for you. Don't tie yourself to a thing because it comes with baggage. You're stronger than that." His words marinated in her thoughts, igniting a flicker of courage. The road ahead was uncertain, but perhaps it began with embracing her past instead of hiding from it. Maybe she didn't need to be defined by the inheritance or her father's decisions. Yet trembling excitement mingled with fear as her pulse quickened. What if she chose to confront her father instead? The notion sparked something unshakable, an opportunity to take charge of her destiny, rather than let it be determined by the shadows of someone else's choices. As he left the diner, Sarah clutched the letter and the crumpled paper from her mother, determination solidifying within her. The decision loomed, but which step would she take next? Would she confront the legacy, or forge a new path entirely? The moment of truth was approaching, and Sarah stood at the edge, ready to leap. What awaited her, success or failure, was woven into the fabric of that single decision. The promise of clarity tormented her, yet exhilarated her spirit. It was time to step into the unknown and face the past that had both shaped her and stifled her. After all, confronting a father meant confronting herself. Her heart surged. This felt monumental. A silence enveloped the diner as she contemplated her next move. Where would her newfound realization lead her? The next moment promised to change everything. With a deep breath, Sarah fortified her resolve as she stood at the counter, the weight of the letter pressing against her palm. The chatter around her faded into a dull roar, merging with the rhythmic ding of the diner's worn bell. Each ring felt like a countdown, a reminder that she couldn't avoid the looming confrontation indefinitely. Confronting him. That's it, she whispered to herself. The slip of paper crinkled in her grip, the ink blurring as her fingers trembled with anticipation and fear. How often had she dreamed of breaking free from the shackles of her father's neglect? The fantasies of closure replayed in her mind, but now they twisted into a chilling reality. The sunlight streaming through the diner's window reflected off glass, illuminating her path. She glanced at Lucy, blissfully unaware, curled up in a booth with a muffin and a drawing pad. Every giggle floated into Sarah's thoughts, a reminder of everything worth fighting for. Her daughter's innocence was a fragile treasure she needed to shield. Should she sacrifice her principles for the bitter truth hidden behind the cold facade of wealth? She shuddered at the thought, and yet a flicker of ambition sparked. Suddenly, the door swung open again, and in walked an older man, sharply dressed, face taut with determination. At first, Sarah didn't recognize him until he turned her way, confidence exuding from every corner of his posture. It was Michael, her father's lawyer, the very man who had likely orchestrated the package that held the key to her inheritance. "Sarah," he exclaimed, his voice jarring her from her whirlwind of thoughts. "I've been trying to reach you. We need to discuss your father's estate." Her stomach knotted. The irony was crushing. He was here, standing solidly in her world as if it was perfectly mundane to appear uninvited. "What do you want?" she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. The fire of anger ignited within her, sending her pulse racing again. "We need to discuss what this means for you," he continued, oblivious to the waves of resentment rolling off her. "There are steps to take, and decisions that can ensure your future stability. You'll want to—" "Stability? Is that what it's all about? My father never cared about stability for me, so why should I care about his money?" Sarah snapped back, a mix of rage and sorrow lacing her words. "I just want to know why he abandoned me." Michael paused, studying her with a keen gaze. "Your father had his reasons, but it's essential to understand the legacy he left behind, both in wealth and in intention." His words sliced through her defenses. Reasons. That was all she had ever wanted, to understand the reasoning. She felt the ache in her heart, threatening to break her resolve. But at that moment, clarity flooded in. She didn't want this man to speak for her, to soften the harsh truths of her father's abandonment. "I'm not interested in what he left me. I need to confront him, face to face, for myself. No more of his representatives." It surprised her to hear the defiance. Michael's expression shifted from surprise to respect, a subtle nod indicating his understanding. "Very well. But Sarah, I can't stress enough the opportunities this inheritance provides. Money can fund your dreams, give Lucy a better life." Pushing past his words was daunting. The thought of wealth still clung to her mind, gnawing at the edges of her conviction. "I don't want a life built on someone's guilt. If I'm to move forward, it has to be on my terms." The conviction simmered in her veins, each word forging her commitment deeper. With their unyielding stares locking, Sarah's heart thrummed loudly with the resonance of newfound courage. She felt like a fighter standing at the precipice of a personal revolution, ready to reclaim her narrative. "Let's arrange a meeting," she asserted, the words steady and strong, the bell above the door chiming with finality. As Michael nodded in affirmation and began to outline the next steps, Sarah sensed the path unfurling. But inside, apprehension twisted, asking her who she would encounter within the walls of that confrontation. Would her father offer the answers she craved, or would he perpetuate the cycle of pain and abandonment? The anticipation of tomorrow loomed ominously close, sparking uncertainty that mixed with a resolute determination. The confrontation would not only define her legacy, but might also serve as the catalyst for true self-discovery. Where would the truth lead her? A step toward liberation, or toward a deeper entanglement with the past? That question lingered, pressing down with a weight that demanded resolution, but the thrill of encountering what lay ahead sent her heart racing. The moment of revelation was at hand, and Sarah felt the urgency of the battle to reclaim her story, one that had only just begun to unfold. The next morning arrived with a palpable heaviness that settled over Sarah like a dense fog. Each tick of the clock echoed in her mind, emphasizing the gravity of the day ahead. She stood before her wardrobe, contemplating her attire, a choice reflecting both her resolve and vulnerability. The right outfit could project confidence, but would it mask her trepidation? After a moment of internal debate, she settled on a simple but elegant dress, reminding herself that appearances could influence perceptions. As she slipped it on, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The woman staring back appeared transformed, yet the uncertainty in her eyes lingered. This was not merely a meeting about money. It was a confrontation with her past, one that demanded her utmost bravery. The drive to her father's estate felt more like a funeral procession than a route toward potential reigns of power. Each mile stretched out before her, amplifying the anxious rhythm of her heartbeat. Lucy babbled softly in the back seat, immersed in her own world of imagination, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in her mother's heart. Sarah stole glances at her daughter, searching for sanity in the chaos of emotions swirling within her. Arriving at the sprawling estate, the enormity of the task ahead pressed down heavily. Designed with ostentation, the house was aesthetically uninviting. It loomed over her like a specter of her father's decisions. With steely resolve, Sarah stepped from the car, every instinct urging her to turn back, but she refused to succumb to doubt. All her life she had been defined by her father's absence. Today she would define herself. As she approached the grand entrance, Michael waited, his presence contrasting sharply against her determined figure. "You're here," he stated, his expression a blend of concern and respect. "I am," she replied, the steadiness of her voice surprising even herself. The door swung open, revealing a lavish foyer. Each element of the house seemed to mock her, decor that represented successes she had never shared, comforts her father had chosen over her. As they moved further inside, Sarah sensed the air thickening with unspoken histories. Michael led her down a long corridor lined with family portraits, her gaze scanning their faces, an array of smiles that felt counterfeit, betraying the hurt she had endured. Finally, they reached a study that seemed to hold the weight of the world. The room felt both welcoming and suffocating, plush chairs and dark wood invoking a sense of serious business. In the center sat her father, a man she scarcely recognized. The coldness in his demeanor sent shivers through her. "Sarah," he greeted, his tone unreadable. "Why did you leave?" The words slipped out, fervent and raw, sharper than she intended. "That's all I want to know." Her father leaned back, a calculated pause hanging between them, his expression veiled as if he were processing an equation. "It was complicated," he began, but Sarah shook her head. "Complicated doesn't cut it. You were my father. I needed you." In that moment, she felt her own urgency, her need for closure and answers strong enough to brave the emotional battlefield. This confrontation was not just a reckoning, it was a chance to rediscover who she was outside of his shadow. Would he shatter the facade of the past or fortify it? "What you need is not always what you want," he said evenly, a statement that ignited anger within her. He continued, "You have a choice to make. Take the money and forge a new path, or let the past dictate your future." That challenge struck at the very core of her being, testing the foundation upon which she hoped to build her new life. Money was appealing, the safety it could offer tantalizing. But would success achieved through a figure like him ever feel like a victory? The line separating ambition from betrayal began to blur, awakening a storm of conflicting ideals. Before she could respond, she realized the stakes had raised beyond mere financial gain. It was about standing up against the man who had wielded his power over her childhood, and learning to reclaim that power for herself. The room felt electrified, a mixture of anger, resolve, and fear swirling within her. One truth remained unexamined, a moment of revolution that stood just out of reach. The choice she made today not only defined her relationship with her father, but also her relationship with herself. Would she dare to confront the legacy he offered, or would she find another way to measure her worth? Would she rise, empowered to redefine her life? The confrontation that would reveal the path toward freedom was just beginning, and Sarah steeled herself for the moment that truly mattered. The tension in the study bubbled just beneath the surface, threatening to erupt. Sarah's mind raced, flooded with memories of lonely birthdays, the absence of guidance during pivotal moments, and whispers of inadequacy that echoed in her head. The walls around her father seemed to shrink, enclosing her in a suffocating embrace. "Do you even realize what you've done?" she pressed, her voice rising. Each word carried the weight of years filled with unsaid sentiments, resentment, and unfulfilled expectations. "I did what I thought was best," he replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his tone. "Best for whom? You or me?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Each syllable felt liberating but terrifying, awakening a dawning realization within her. Perhaps this wasn't solely about addressing her father. It was about unlocking a part of herself she had kept dormant too long. His eyes darkened, the cold facade slightly cracking as he shifted in his chair. "You think you can come in here after all this time and expect me to relinquish everything I built?" "Built on what?" The words slipped out before she could filter them, laden with accusation. "On my absence? On your regrets? Is that what you call an inheritance?" For the first time, she saw a flicker of emotion, regret or perhaps guilt, reflected in the depths of his gaze. It emboldened her. This moment was becoming a crucible, forging her frustration into determination. She wasn't just reliving her past, she was forging a future, even if it hung in precarious balance. Michael leaned against the doorframe, sensing the escalation, his presence a silent reminder of the world outside this confrontation. It took Sarah a moment to realize he could potentially serve as a bridge between her and her father's distance, if only she pressed wisely. "Let me ask you this," she said, her voice suddenly steadying. "Do you truly think I need your money to succeed? To find my way? Or are you projecting your fears onto me?" The atmosphere shifted, electrified with possibility. Her father's shoulders tensed, as if her words struck chords in a long-forgotten symphony of self-doubt. For a fleeting moment, she sensed the powerful man caught within the throes of his own insecurities, and it drove her resolve further. She was breaking the mirror of the past, bending the reflection that had distorted her view of self-worth. "I've survived without you," she continued, pacing now, confronting his silence. "And yet here I am, ready to confront you. Not just for me, but for the multitude of women who feel trapped by expectations. You offer what? A choice to inherit a legacy of emotional neglect, or continue on my path of self-discovery." As she spoke, clarity washed over her. The money might afford her comfort, but the true reward would be mastering her own narrative. For Sarah, the decision was increasingly evident. This was a juncture unequivocally intertwined with her identity, a reflection of the woman she was meant to become, one who recognized her intrinsic value beyond material wealth. Her heart raced. She had delivered her manifesto. But would he recognize it? Would he understand that her strength couldn't be purchased? She stood poised at a crossroads, curious about his next move, wondering what power he could possibly wield now that the tables had turned. The silence stretched thin, the air thick with the weight of unspoken expectations and potential revelations. She awaited his reply, her breath caught in the anticipation of finally laying claim to her own story, not just the one he authored. "Are you ready to face the truth of your own choices?" he finally asked, his voice low but tinged with urgency. The question spiraled in her mind. Had it all come down to this? She felt the stirrings of empowerment, the realization that whatever answer she provided next could redefine not only her past relationship with her father, but reshape her entire future. "Truth has a way of expanding one's horizons, doesn't it?" she replied, ready to penetrate the facade surrounding him. The weight of uncertainty hummed between them, thick with the promise of budding resolution. Would she continue standing her ground or retreat to the shadows of her past? The moment teetered on the edge of revelation. It was just a breath away from either liberation or regret. The journey was only beginning, and the truths they both sought were still locked within this charged space. As tension danced in the air, Sarah braced herself for the next step. What truth awaited them, and would it lead her further from or closer to her own definition of self-worth? The silence stretched between them, a chasm that felt both daunting and liberating. Sarah sensed the shift in her father's demeanor, an infinitesimal crack forming in his imposing exterior. For so long she had felt trapped beneath the weight of his expectations and the legacy of choices he'd made for her, yet now she stood on the brink of something profound. The air was charged with a chance for confrontation, and she could almost taste the possibility of liberation. "I need to know, Dad," she began, her voice firmer now, steeling herself as she pressed on. "What were you really afraid of when you chose to cut me out of your life? Was it fear of my failure, or perhaps your own?" His brow furrowed, and an unmistakable tension built within him. She was navigating dangerous waters, yet the potential for growth was too enticing to ignore. This encounter was about more than just personal grievances. It was a dance of vulnerability, an opportunity for redemption not just for them, but possibly for others who had found themselves at the mercy of someone else's control. "I was trying to protect you," he shot back, but his voice lacked conviction.
"You never understood what it meant to have everything on your shoulders."
"Protect me from what? A life filled with choices? The opportunity to write my own story?" Sarah felt an unexpected surge of confidence. Each word was an act of reclamation, and she realized that this confrontation was not just about his choices. It was a mirror reflecting her own historical complicity in enabling his narrative. She stepped forward, narrowing the space between them, her gaze unwavering. "You think I want to inherit a fortress built on the ruins of my childhood? A legacy of fear? No,
I want to carve out my own path, to validate not just my painful past, but to own my present. As her words seeped into the air, she saw the deeper flicker of realization spark within him. Perhaps he too was coming to grips with his own failings, not as a ruler bestowing fortune, but as a flawed human being. The tension shifted, recalibrating from one of anger and frustration to something bordering on a newfound understanding. But then, doubt crept in. Why would he change now? What revelation had the years of distance and reckoning brought him? She searched his expression for signs of clarity, willing him to embrace the honesty she had so desperately brought forth. "Do you even think I'll welcome you back into my life after all this?" he asked, almost as if testing the waters of sincerity. "I don't come seeking absolution, nor do I need your permission to succeed." Sarah's voice dropped to a calmer, more reflective tone. "This is about me standing here as a whole person, capable and fierce, regardless of how you've defined my worth all these years." In that moment, she caught a glimpse of a possible future, one where she held the reins, refusing to let their past puppet her emotions. The clarity bubbled within her, a realization that while healing often began with forgiveness, it also required a firm stand against oppressive ideals, no matter from whom they came. "Maybe this is all I've needed," she said softly, dancing between the shadows of resentment and affection, "to reclaim my identity from the ruins you left behind." At that instant, Michael cleared his throat softly, pulling Sarah's attention for just a heartbeat. His unwavering support offered a sense of grounding, reminding her of the supportive network she'd built outside her family's confines. Then her father's voice broke through, shaky yet resolute. "Then what is it you truly want, Sarah? What does reclaiming your identity look like?" For Sarah, that question unfurled before her like an uncharted map. She recalled the dreams she had shelved, the ambitions she buried beneath years of self-doubt. It sparked an exhilarating thought, a desire to forge a path, not mapped by her father, but sketched by her own aspirations. Taking a deep breath, she was prepared to articulate her vision. The prospect of making that declaration ignited a fire within her, a fierce reminder that indeed she was her own architect.
"I want to build something genuine, something that celebrates both my victories and struggles, acknowledging what you've both given and taken away." The stakes escalated as she stared at him boldly, understanding that this moment was loaded. Would he try to regain an ounce of control over her narrative, or would he step back and let her exist free of his influence? "Your answer could redefine everything for us, you know," he said, his tone shifting. "But are you truly ready?" Each second thrummed with potential. This was the junction, a moment to clarify her intentions, and amidst the anxious pulse, Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. Would she take the plunge deeper into this emotional labyrinth, or nurture the clarity she had uncovered? "Let's find out," she whispered, realizing her journey was just beginning. The path was still obscured by shadows of uncertainty and the remnants of their shared history. Yet, with a renewed focus on her own identity, she felt the thrill of embarking on what would be the most transformative chapter of her life. What awaited her next would not just challenge her resolve, but potentially solidify who she was meant to be. The challenge hung in the air like a taut string, vibrating with the unuttered possibilities of what lay ahead. Sarah could see the conflict playing across her father's face, a blend of uncertainty and grudging respect. In that moment, she understood that the next steps were not merely about their relationship, but about her own evolution, the sense of self that had remained dormant for too long. "Ready," she echoed softly, more to herself as a declaration rather than an acknowledgement. The word thrummed in her mind like the steady beat of a drum, urging her forward. She turned away from the vulnerability of the moment between them, focusing instead on the countless paths her life could take. The visions that had flickered in her mind during childhood suddenly felt vividly within reach. The art studio she had fantasized about, the community projects she'd envisioned, the meaningful connections she longed to forge in her professional life. But would she risk it all? Would she leap into the unknown? As his expectant gaze washed over her, she realized the time for hesitation was over. This confrontation had forced her to confront the courage she had hidden beneath layers of expectation and fear. She was standing not only on the threshold of her own future, but also at the intersection of her past and the legacy she would choose to leave behind.
Reclaiming my identity, she began, focusing on her voice as she gathered the strength to articulate her vision, means exploring the world without the chains of your decisions binding me. I want to curate an existence that reflects my passions, not just survive in the shadows of what you've built. With each word spoken, a flicker of resolve ignited in her chest.
It stirred an undeniable energy, a promise she made to herself that this time she would stay true to her intentions, no matter the obstacles that may arise. Your vision has overshadowed mine for too long, and I'm not here to negotiate my worth. I've spent years letting your expectations restrict my potential. Now I want to discover who I am when I'm free. There was a tangible shift in the atmosphere. She could almost taste the air thickening with an emotional charge. He watched her, and it was as if the weight of the silence suddenly transformed into something lighter, something less suffocating. She sensed that this acknowledgement could either empower them both or threaten the fragile structure of their relationship. "What if I could help you?" he asked, his voice low yet imbued with a tentative offer. For a moment she hesitated, caught off guard by the unexpected twist in the exchange. Help? She had not expected that. Would his assistance come at a price? The implications of his statement rippled through her mind, revealing more questions than answers. Trust was no longer a simple colonial affair. It had become a complex web woven through the experiences of disappointment and disillusionment. Sarah scrutinized her father's expression, weighing her options. Help, she echoed. Doing this together could mean re-establishing a relationship, but what does that truly mean? I'm not interested in merely rekindling a facade. If we move forward, I need to feel that you're committed to the groundwork of honesty. As she spoke, determination solidified within her. It seemed unbearable to ponder the potential repercussions of letting him back into her life, even partially. Yet a flicker of hope emerged, a chance to traverse this rocky terrain with intent. If helping means keeping open lines of communication, both ways, I'm willing to explore that, she stated firmly. The prospect of his support felt like a double-edged sword, enticing yet menacing. Still, she was ready to contemplate collaboration, not for his needs, but as an experiment in rebuilding trust. Are we both prepared for what that could entail? Sarah grappled with the emerging possibility of creating a new narrative together, even if it risked opening old wounds. The time had come to forge her own path while redefining their dynamics and set boundaries. They locked eyes, each poised on the edge of clarity, but neither fully committed to the leap. The sensory details of the room began to fade as her thoughts drifted into the immensity of what was unfolding. She sensed a crucial juncture. It wasn't merely about her father's intentions, but a reflection of her own growth. Would she allow the specter of their past to dictate her future? "Let's take it one step at a time then," she finally replied, invigorated by the notion that they might rise from their shared history with a new foundation. "But remember, the journey is mine now." And as they began to explore the terms of their new engagement, Sarah felt a swell of determination. Each passing moment heralded the potential for transformation, both personally and relationally. She was on the cusp of something profound, a reconstruction of identity intertwined with the fragile dance of reconciliation. But deep down, a question nested within her. Would her father be able to navigate this new territory without reverting to the control he once wielded? Would their collaboration foster growth or entangle her once more in grasping hands? Only time would tell, as Sarah braced herself for the unfolding uncertainties. She was ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that beneath the intricacies of rebirth, the most significant battle was still within her. "Let's redefine everything, shall we?" she asserted, a glimmer of resolve igniting her voice. The next chapter of her life beckoned, but would it lead to a new understanding or spiral into chaos once more? The conversation lingered like a shadow in the room, but Sarah could feel the light pushing through. She stood on the precipice of change, the heaviness of her father's expectations no longer suffocating her, but offering a challenge to overcome. Clarity washed over her like a sudden wave, revealing the opportunity to delve deep into who she truly was, beyond the confines of her past. As they began to outline the terms of their agreement, an unfamiliar sense of empowerment surged within her, exhilarating and terrifying all at once.
The challenge before them was not simply about rekindling their relationship. It was about embarking on Sarah's quest for authenticity, a journey long on hold. "Perhaps we should define what honesty looks like for us moving forward," she proposed, intentionally shifting the focus back onto the foundation of their new arrangement. Her heart raced as she considered the weight of her words, knowing this could set the course for their future. Her father regarded her with a newfound respect. "That's fair. I think we need to be straightforward about our intentions. I don't want to impose." "Imposing is exactly what I'm working to break free from," Sarah said, striving to maintain her composure. "Your idea of success felt like a prison. I need to discover mine." The conversation flowed from that point, each word striking like a hammer forging a new reality. They dissected the past, exposing the intricate dynamics that had kept them estranged. Sarah expressed her desire for freedom in her career pursuits, related her dreams of traveling to art studios and galleries, and explained how those ambitions had been stifled under the weight of expectation. "I understand that I might not have recognized your passions," he admitted, a semblance of regret flickering in his eyes. "I was driven by my own ideals, but it hurt you." "It did," she acknowledged, needing to reinforce the validity of her struggle.
"But it also made me realize how necessary it is to pursue what fuels me, regardless of your vision for my life." With every confession, she felt layers peeling away, her frustration, her fear, her resentment. It was liberating to communicate so directly. She realized that each moment they spent in this candid discourse was equally a step towards healing and discovering her own voice. Having established the foundation of honesty, an internal tension rose in her mind. What would next week look like? Would the clarity they'd achieved lead to actionable changes, or would old patterns resurface? Sarah recognized that healing could not be forced. It relied on their ability to maintain this level of transparency. "Will we be able to sustain this?" she queried quietly, cautious in her vulnerability. "What happens when we slip back into old habits? What if this all unravels?" "I don't intend to let that happen," he said firmly, signaling a shift in his once rigid stance. "This means too much to me, and to you. I want to support your journey, not hold you back." The resolve in her father's voice ignited a strength inside Sarah. Perhaps there was a chance for them yet, an opportunity to redefine not only their relationship, but also their narratives. But even as possibilities blossomed before her, doubt loomed. Their history was fraught with cracks that could splinter any progress they made together. Feeling emboldened, Sarah took a breath, ready to lay it all on the table. "If we do this, it starts with setting boundaries. I need to know that I can pursue my passions without feeling pressured to meet your milestones." "Agreed," he replied without hesitation, and she felt a wave of relief wash over her. But the challenges of structuring honest communication remained, especially in times of tension. As they stepped back from their heartfelt conversation, Sarah felt clarity swirl around her. The path ahead seemed difficult, yet it held the promise of unveiling a self that had long been dormant. She was committed to the work that lay ahead, aware that confrontation and collaboration were double-edged swords. But would her father truly uphold his end of the agreement? Would this newfound partnership bear fruit, or would moments of weakness pull both of them back into roles they were desperate to escape? With every intention meticulously laid out, she suddenly felt a pulsing question arise within her. Could they withstand the examination of their motivations without losing sight of each other? This was not just about discovering who she was. It was about navigating the intricate dance of their relationship. As they grappled with uncertainty, Sarah's determination crystallized. With all the effort she had expended in defining her boundaries, could she also trust him to respect them? The journey had only just begun. Would she be capable of holding on to her autonomy while rebuilding a bridge that once felt irreparably damaged? As these thoughts churned in her mind, Sarah realized that the coming days would demand more courage than she had ever realized she possessed. With her new identity emerging, she stood ready to face those challenges head-on. Would her father navigate this journey alongside her, or would she discover yet another version of him she had never anticipated? The following week unfolded with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation.
Sarah awoke each morning with the newfound responsibility of her own aspirations buzzing in her mind. But along with that excitement came a constant echo of doubt, a nagging voice questioning whether she was strong enough to uphold her promises, both to herself and to her father. During their next conversation, Sarah confronted what felt like an unspoken agreement between them. "Let's revisit our expectations. I need us to stay aligned," she began, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. Her father nodded, but she could sense a residual tension beneath his composed exterior. "You're right, we've come so far, but I know old habits die hard." She had expected that admission, but it still stirred a whirlpool of emotions within her. "What does support look like to you?" Sarah pursued, pushing through her inner hesitation. It was an essential question, demanding clarity in a relationship already rich with ambiguity. "To me, it means checking in, before any assumptions, and without trying to steer you back into what I want," he said, his expression evolving from rigidity to openness. The vulnerability in his gaze made her throat tighten. Was he truly ready for this level of transparency, or was he merely playing the part, hoping to keep her on a path defined by him? Determined to take charge of the conversation, Sarah pressed forward. "If I'm challenged by my own self-doubts, I also need to feel the freedom to explore my career opportunities. I might stray off the path, and I need to know it's okay." "That makes sense. But can you also assure me that you'll let me know if you're feeling lost?" His question hung in the air, revealing not just his concern, but also a thread of dependency she hadn't expected. Did he need her to validate his belief in her? "I'll do my best," Sarah replied cautiously. Yet the suggestion that she had to reassure him placed an unanticipated weight on her shoulders. Was her father leaning on her for validation? What if the very act of him wanting to support her became a new form of pressure? Over the following days, Sarah immersed herself in research on art movements and local galleries, an exciting yet daunting venture into a world she had long desired to engage with. Every sketch she made, every artist whose work she encountered, unveiled fresh layers of her identity. Yet alongside this blossoming came shadows of self-doubt. Questions of readiness and capability wove constantly through her thoughts. One afternoon, while she sat with her laptop and a steaming cup of coffee, an email from a local art studio flashed across her screen. They were offering a workshop for emerging artists, a chance to create and showcase new work. A deep breath in and out. Here lay an opportunity teetering on the edge of acceptance and fear, the exact moment she needed to confront her own boundaries. But was she ready to plunge back into the art world, particularly with the limited dynamics of her relationship with her father? Dip into fresh waters while keeping her head above the tumult of emotional currents? Yet, what if she didn't sign up? Would she be betraying herself or setting boundaries? A resolve began to solidify within her. The feelings of inadequacy could either crush her spirit or become fuel for growth. With shaky hands, Sarah clicked the Applications tab. As she attempted to submit her details, another thought pierced through. She needed to update her father first, to let him know she was moving forward. Would he view this decision as positive, or would the lingering remnants of expectation reemerge? Taking a deep breath, she composed a quick message about the workshop. "I hope you can be excited for me. This is truly a step toward my authentic self." Before hitting send, she hesitated. Sarah had spent so long determining how she could carve out her own identity. Was she allowing him back into her space, or taking an irrevocable step that would see the boundaries blurring again? With that lingering question grinding in her heart, she pressed send. The clarity of action felt both exhilarating and frightening, a potential turning point in her quest for authenticity. As she waited for his response, she couldn't help but wonder how this path would affect their evolving relationship. Would her father celebrate her growth, or would his previous ideals creep back in, testing the fragile ground they were building on? The journey forward was no longer just about her career. It was a deepening exploration of her relationship with her father, filled with questions that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their progress. The moment of truth was fast approaching. Would she be able to embrace her autonomy while navigating these newfound waters? In the days that followed, Sarah found herself navigating the intricacies of communication with her father. Each interaction grew more profound, challenging her to articulate her needs while also allowing space for his perspective. The weight of their previous misunderstandings began to lift as they fostered a fragile but growing respect. When her father replied to her workshop email, his response was surprisingly supportive. "I'm glad you're taking this step, Sarah. You deserve to chase your passions," he wrote. The sincerity in his words encouraged her to view his intentions through a new lens, yet doubt still lingered.
Was this the change she had been waiting for, or a temporary blip in the cycle of expectations and disappointment? With each passing day, Sarah embraced her workshop preparations. She secured her spot, stepping boldly into a realm that had been a whisper in her heart for far too long. Every canvas became a testament to her journey, showcasing her grief, hopes, and the resilience that fueled her. Painting became a sanctuary, a space where she could express herself authentically. On the first day of the workshop, Sarah arrived bursting with excitement, but clutching her notebook tightly, trembling slightly. As she set up her space, her instructor's warm words resonated within her. "Art is the bridge between emotion and representation," he said, gesturing enthusiastically. "Let it guide you." Those words ignited a spark. She poured her heart onto the canvas, mixing colors with fervor, channeling everything she felt about her journey, the uncertainty, the reclamation, and her evolving relationship with her father. With each stroke, she felt the weight of expectations dissipate, transforming into something beautiful. Meanwhile, she continued her candid interactions with her father. Their conversations became more frequent, punctuated by her initiatives to set boundaries without causing friction. Her father genuinely began to grasp her needs, acknowledging the inner artist they were both slowly discovering and embracing. He even attended her first gallery showing with Michael, grounded in support rather than control. That evening, surrounded by the artwork that symbolized her growth, Sarah felt a remarkable transformation filling the air. As she stood in the gallery, she glanced at the smiling faces admiring her work, family, friends, and even some strangers who had stumbled upon her art. It was validation not just of her talent, but of her courage to step into her own light. Turning her gaze toward her father, she caught him admiring one of her pieces, a vibrant depiction of a mother and child, embodying the love she sought to instill in Lucy. He stood captivated, his eyes reflecting something akin to pride. In that moment, Sarah realized how far they had both come. The weight of his influence no longer suffocated her. It inspired a new dialogue between them, one built on encouragement rather than expectation. As the evening wore on, her father approached her and mentioned, "You've accomplished something remarkable tonight, Sarah. I see you now, truly see you." Her heart swelled as she sensed the sincerity in his voice, a far cry from the distant, transactional encounters of their past. "I couldn't have done this without recognizing my worth beyond your shadow," she replied, her honesty flowing effortlessly. "I had to become my own advocate before I could accept your support." Their understanding deepened, revealing new layers of their relationship. She noticed a shift with him, a recognition not just of her victories, but an acknowledgement of their shared humanity, both flawed and yet striving for connection. Through conquered fears, newly forged connections, and a clearer sense of identity, Sarah embarked on this chapter with solid confidence. She had accomplished a great deal, morphing her inherited struggle into strength, proving to herself that she was capable of shaping her life on her own terms. The shadows of uncertainty faded, eclipsed by the brilliance of her burgeoning confidence. Her accomplishments were tangible, art that she felt proud to display, and a more profound, genuine relationship blossoming with her father. Indeed, she had closed the chapter of her past, a past once filled with neglect and confusion, and entered into the narrative of her future, where dreams and ambitions stretched infinitely. As she stepped back from her final piece at the gallery, a sense of fulfillment washed over her like the warm light illuminating the room. This metamorphosis was just the beginning of her story, one that promised to unfold further as she embraced her authentic self while navigating her newfound relationship with her father. In that moment of triumph, she noted that true strength lay not just in her artistry, but in the courage of transformation. Sarah achieved clarity not only within herself, but also in the space she chose to share with those she loved, forging a new path that offered promise and potential. Now it is your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to follow along on these exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your own journey. Leave a like right now to fuel the algorithm and share the love. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's emotional journey,
And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Your support means the world.